Hey, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, it seems to be one of those times when a lot of people are talking about some very old people and then some other not quite so old people who are facing some real challenges. Now, since we started our channel, we've walked people through some some really challenging times. I did do a video and I told you how I sat with Dennis, the man who had, Beth called him the giant leg man. He had an enormous tumour that doubled or more the size of his right thigh, right from the groin down into the knee. Well, the short story is that we went to the hospital with him. We went the first time. He was told it would be an amputation. He chickened out. Well, chickened out, that's a terrible way to put it. He was afraid of doing that and it wasn't hurting, so he left it. A year later, the diagnosis was the same, and he eventually had to have the leg amputated. And he was told that it was not a cure, that at best he might have 14 months to live. And I sat through him listening to that and how that would, and realised how that would change our life. And just lately, last few days, I watched another vlogger, a well-known vlogger, who was talking about Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh is an iconic figure. He is an extremely well-known, recognised, prestigious man. Whether you like what he does or not is neither here nor there. He's been around doing what he does, having a show and being part of the radio or television scene for something like 30 years. And he has now been diagnosed with cancer, and it looks like he's been given some dates now. So he's now living on a timeline, and I watched a clip of him talking about it, and talking about how when you're told that there's a clock is now kind of like a clock has been turned on, and they're telling you, look at the clock, when it gets round to this you will not be here. And boy, that takes a challenge to face that, and he gave a moving talk, which was quite, it chastened you, because he was facing something that he'd been living on the brink of for some time, being told that he was in remission, and then he thought that it was held at bay, and then it wasn't, and now it seems like now he's down to the wire. And we're looking at the idea of being down to the wire, being told, well, you've got a certain amount of time left. And I was thinking about Dennis. Dennis was only given 12 to 14 months, and that was over 2 years ago. Over 2 years ago. We saw Dennis the day after he had his leg amputated, and he was cheerful, positive and strong and smiling, and no poor me, you know, whereas, let's face it, he would have every right to be a little bit down, because he's a young man, he was a vibrant young man, and he lost his leg. And it's one of those that, in his situation, how is he going to get a prosthetic leg, because they took the leg off right up into the thigh, you know, not much left, I mean right onto the pelvis, so therefore that will be quite, I'm sure that they can do it, but it would mean it would mean having a whole corset that would go right up to the waist in order to be able to support that. And even then, could they do it? And would he have the money? Which I doubt, because that's a very, very high priced thing. Prosthetic is not cheap. Plus, you have to have an army of people who will teach you how to be able to survive on this thing. So there's him, and he's still doing great. We saw him a little while ago. His motorcycle has been damaged, and so we went round there. We heard that his motorcycle had been damaged and he couldn't get it repaired, so we went and we picked it up in the blue and we took it over to a mechanic, Nesta, and it's being repaired right now. So we asked him, how are you feeling? And he said, I am feeling good. I'm feeling good. Not to trivialize it, but it does remind me of that kind of a dark joke of the man who was in the waiting room of a hospital, and he'd just had terrible news about his condition, and his head was in his hands, and it was a pretty sad scene. And an oldish man came and sat next to him and said, so son, what's the problem? And he told him, well, it looks like this is going to be a very, very serious challenge, you know. And the old man was very upbeat. He said, you know, you got to be upbeat about this, you know. You've got to be positive. You've got to put your put the negativity to one side and not, you know. The young man said to him, sir, you know, with respect, it's okay for you to say that, but I'm the one that's suffering this challenge. And the man said, well, I don't know. He said, I came into this hospital 4 years ago, and they gave me similar news to what you have, and they gave me 18 months to live. And the young man said, sorry, you said you came in 4 years ago, and they gave you, back then they gave you 18 months to live? So what happened? He said, I didn't believe them. So this huge amount of what you think is prevalent. It actually does make a difference what you think. Now, I'm not trivializing what may be for anybody who has had incredibly bad news on this. But even though that's just an anecdote and probably has no bearing on the truth or reality at all, it is a lesson. And there is that one quite famous, and I can never remember details on these things, but it was one where the man was in hospital and had been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and was being told, well, you know, better to get your affairs in order, you know. So he discharged himself from hospital. This is a true story. I know, I've read this as a true story, a true account. And he booked himself into a hospital, into a hotel. He booked himself into a hotel, and he lay in bed there, had room service, ate well, and he watched comedy movies, made for TV series, all of the ones. He watched MASH, he watched, you know, he watched, I don't know, Everybody Loves Raymond, Only Fools and he just watched them all. And he laughed himself into the clear. And he went back and they examined him and they found no trace of the cancer. So who knows how these things work? But what it takes us on to, and I want to make a quick reference to my friend Kerry in Australia. His mom is 96 years old. Mrs. McDonald, I don't think it's your birthday right now, but what the heck, happy birthday anyway. And we all have you in our prayers and our thoughts, because we are fond of Kerry, your son, and he's been telling us how he calls you every night. And I told him, not that he needs to be reminded, I've told him that he's a lucky man, because my mother died before I woke up to how important your parents are. And now I live in regret about that I just wish that I could have really told her that I love her. And that chance passed, and I will never get that chance again until maybe the next place. Well, also on the same theme, we have a subscriber, Frank Schrock. I hope that's how you pronounce your name, Frank. But anyway, we've exchanged a few messages, and I happen to see that Frank's mom, who is 96, and is celebrating her birthday. So we wanted to wish Mrs. Schrock a happy 96th birthday. And if Frank, you can possibly get her to show this video, mother, you're everybody's mother, let's face it. Nanay, our nanay, which is Filipino for mother. My mother-in-law, Beth's mother, is nanay to everyone, is mother to everyone. So, Mrs. Schrock, mother, we'll wish you a very happy birthday and hope you enjoy your special day. Now, when I finally, because of making that reference and wishing Mrs. Schrock a happy birthday, Frank messaged me and said, and in that exchange there, I mentioned to him my friend Kerry and his mom, and how Kerry every night at, I think it's something like 8 o'clock local time, he calls his mother and he spends half an hour or an hour on the phone talking to his mom. And he does that every night. And I tell him that he's a lucky man to be able to do that. And I told Frank the same. And Frank told me a funny thing. He said, when I saw that about your friend Kerry, said, I had to laugh. He said, because I call my mom too. And I call her every day. And I feel lucky to be able to do that. Frank, Kerry, you are both lucky men to be able to do that. Truth is that anybody is under a possible death sentence, you know. My brother, loved my brother dearly. He was about to come out to America. When I was in America, he was about to come out to America to visit me. I hadn't seen him for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. And my sister was going to pay for them both to come out. Now, my brother was my big brother, even though he was 7 years younger than me. My sister was my big sister because she was one tough cookie, and she was 7 years older than me. My brother should have been my little brother, but he wasn't. He was the toughest one. And when our parents had both died, we stood literally at the crematorium, and we made a promise to each other that we would call each other regularly, because we lived 200 and something miles apart. He lived in Manchester, I lived in London, and we made a promise to each other that we would do that, and we kept that promise. Then I came to America, and I hadn't seen him for, it must have been around 10 or 12 years. I am terrible on dates. And my sister called me and told me that he had died. So at least I was able to keep that promise to him, and we talked to each other. I didn't get that chance with my sister, who died later. So the fact is that there's no point in we're not being brave, we're not being cowardly, we're not being anything. It's just a fact. Death is a fact of life. And for my part now, Beth doesn't even like me to talk about this. But she is only 31 and I am 81. Now for most people, and let's not go into whether there are rights and wrongs about that, it is what it is. We are happily married, coming up for 7 years of happy marriage. Despite the age difference, and despite that I'm often a cranky old man and a boring old fart, we have a happy marriage, and we have a meaningful marriage, and we've found a mission which we share, which unites us in a happy marriage. But we live on the understanding that the Lord may take not just me. I may be the one who is left alone. None of us are guaranteed. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. The rest of the day is not guaranteed. When my brother died, he was out. And literally just gave in. His heart gave up. He'd been a drinker and a smoker all of his life, and his heart just gave up. He was dead, and he had left strict instructions that he was not to be kept alive by sticking tubes and wires into him, that he was allowed to die when he was cold. We tried to interfere with the Grim Reaper, and it doesn't really work. A lot of people are kept hanging on into being a shadow of themselves, and it often turns out that it was not the right thing to do. So Beth and I face our challenge of my age and the likelihood that it will be me that goes first. So when in those particularly intimate moments when all of the guards are down and you're talking as close as two hearts can be, when she says, "Don't leave me," she's not talking about me walking off with an 18-year-old down the road. She's talking about me passing. It's a fact of life, and it should not interfere with our ability or our willingness to face life in a completely open, fearless way. You know? Because you can't prepare for something that you don't know is going to come. Kerry and Frank have parents who are enjoying their 97th year. They're in their 97th year, aren't they? Who could know? Who could know who would ever have gone first? It's not it's not a numbers game. When they say that age is just a number, very often they're talking about the fact that it is just a number as far as any statistic goes, like the old man in the waiting room. He was given 18 months to live, and 4 years later he's giving advice to a young man in a similar position. What did you do? Oh, I didn't believe them. So all of your thoughts, all of those thoughts that you are having right now are taking you into your future. The present, however good, bad or ugly it is right now, is what you thought about in the past. And it can actually be seen to be true. Now for me, I'm trying to make amends for what I look back on now as a selfish or self-centered life. I never thought of myself as being selfish or self-centered, but compared to what I'm doing right now, it could be argued that was so. So when you get to a certain age, let's face it, what's the entitlement? Do they say 20? Is it 10? 10, so 70. Apparently we're only entitled to 70, and anything after that is a bonus. So I'm on bonus time, and well, like they said to the man who they had condemned to death because he had cancer, and they told him to put his affairs in order. I tried to put my affairs in order by helping others, and in a way you could argue it's very selfish because it's a feel-good thing. We feel the most fulfilled when we're helping. Now, Beth has come to that realization so much sooner than I have. I always thought of myself as a pretty fast learner, and here I am. It only took me 74 years to find the right partner. So yes, I'm really fast. So if we end off with thinking about Rush Limbaugh, and we wish him well, wish him health, we wish him to live and to be able to think through this, and we'll say a prayer for him. So thanks for listening to this as a bit of a meander, I know, but you live your life and you live it to the fullest every single day. What did samurai swordsmen, warriors who were going into battle, they died. They faced dying before they went into battle. And then they went in and they fought fearlessly. American Indians were also supposed to be of the mindset that they would get up in the morning and say, this would be a good day to die. And by not opposing anything that happened, they lived their life fearlessly. So, here we are. Unfortunately for you, I'll be back to do another one tomorrow. All going well. Thanks for listening. This is A Foreigner in the Philippines. Bye for now.